It's often said that there are no real characters left, and I can understand why. The age of mass communication seems to be turning all local accents and attitudes into a kind of thin cultural soup. But thank heavens, there are still remote places in the Dales where people dare to be themselves, whatever the outside world might think of them. One such is Jim Alderson, a sheepman who embodies the stubborn individuality that characterises Upper Swaledale, where he's lived and worked all his life. Like most Dales folk, Jim isn't over keen on talking figures. That goes for how many acres he farms, how many sheep he owns, and even how old he is. But pride in his work and family tradition, well, that's different.
The time came when there was 7 of us, two of the family had to leave and get another farm, and I offered to go up, and my father said, "They'll have to stop here." And so I did.
Is it a hard life?
I suppose it is, if you're keen enough for working.
I believe you were born at lambing time.
So I was. My earliest memories, I was missing, and I was standing, just looking over wall at sheep and lambs. And one of my first is, I was standing among sheep in fold with my man, with my father and hired man I had. And I wanted to walk from one to the other. And I mustn't have been above 2 or 3 at most, because I doesn't walk from one to the other, because sheep would knock me over. And I had a tense longing to be grown up and to be able to walk about among them like they had.
Is there ever any confusion at all when it comes to rounding them all up?
Not so much, no. Each farmer has his own particular mark. Ours is a key bit at far ear and a piece off near ear. And then it's same, we put a black stroke down far ribs. And of course there's a shepherd's guide book with all the marks in. But we know off by heart most of our neighbours mark within a radius of 30 miles or so.
How far can sheep wander on these fells?
Oh, they'll go 20 miles. We've right at 2 commons, Angram Common and Birkdale Common, and one's about between 3,000 and 4,000 acres, and two is between 6 and 7. And then beyond that, they'll go right through into Cumbria. I'm on them land beside roadside above Kirby Stephen.
How many sheep have you got on there? Have you any idea?
Oh, there'll be only about less than 1 sheep to 2 acre maybe.
That's still an awful lot of sheep.
Aye, it is a lot of sheep, aye. But again, you see, there's 6,000 sheep, hill sheep gone out as well these last few years. Not all together, but chiefly because of grouse shooting aristocracy.
Don't you get on very well with them?
They've got this mistaken idea that if there was less sheep, there would be more heather. And if there's more heather, there'll be more grouse.
Jim is no stranger to ploughing his own furrow, whatever others may think. At one time, Keld boasted its own pub, but he bought it and shut it down. Then he went to live there and renamed it Hope House, a clue to his strong religious convictions.
When I was 13, I was one of a group of village lads, and we had an evangelist at Methodist Chapel. And he appealed for anybody who wanted to give their lives to Christ to go forward and knight at altar. And so I did. And I've kept my promise.
I understand you were baptised in this way.
We were baptised, both myself and my wife.
You were fully immersed?
Fully immersed, nearly down to my wife, but she got up spluttering. And we felt it's something we want to do. I believe if to keep your life as pure as the mountain air, and the mountain stream, at least we try. Spiritual things are more important than material things. A lot of people in this day and generation doesn't seem to think so, but they are.
So whereabouts did this happen?
Oh, just in that dub there. If you know what a dub is.
No, not really.
Well, a pool in the river where the river's deeper and wider.
And that's just behind the house where you were born?
Exactly. It's 625. Bishop Paulinus came and baptised in the swell. I understand the area would possibly be pagan before that. And the swell became known as the Jordan of England. There have been more people baptised in the swell than any other river in England. I never failed to get a thrill every time I see a new lamb. It's a marvellous miracle. I mean, only God could make a lamb.
A lot of people would look at the lambing and think, oh, it's very straightforward and easy, but there's an awful lot of hard work to it, isn't there?
Oh, there's always something needs attention every day.
Is lambing time the best time of the year, would you say?
Well, I like June best time of year. Stocks out and sheep are out on fell.
How bad can you remember the winters being?
Oh, pretty bad. Pretty bad. Of course, 47 was the winter of all time. If you get right exposed hill, especially after if it's been a wet spell and then comes hard frost and snow, back on the wood, ice is up. And sometimes I've had to smash it all with my stick till I hadn't had a stick left.
Even after all these years, you still get the same thrill?
Oh, aye. It's the best job in the world.
At first glance, Peter and Mary Beresford seem just like your average couple next door. He's an avid do-it-yourself man. Their cottage in the village of Hellifield, near Skipton, bears witness to his handiwork. Both are keen gardeners, tending their little plot with skill and care. But it's when those green fingers move from the cabbages to the keys that the Beresfords really come into their own.
Music, like it's somewhat it's bred in us, you see, for generations. And I heard my father and my Uncle George playing, and I got on the accordion. I played in an old wood hut, little wood hut thing. It was like a toilet thing, you see, so I shook the box in and went and played in it. And it was dark, you had to shut the door, you see, to stop wind, because it was a bit drafty. And I played in dark, actually. It was dark when I shut the door. And anyhow, one time they were having a dance at Outer Shore, and after the dance I got all the accordion and I thought, oh, I'll have a bit of a do. And I played a dance, and there was a chap in Major Horn, he used to have a pub, but Cray were there, and he used to come in his bedroom slippers, because he'd bad feet, you see. And he says, "Bah, gum lad," he says, "I didn't know that I could play one of them things," he says. I like it as it sounds. It's a sharpness and the touch. You can get something out of accordion. If you just touch it, it responds right away.
Peter, when you first hear about the Beresford band, you almost expect a cast of thousands, but this is it.
Yes, this is it. There's only two of us. That's right.
How did it all start?
Well, when I got married, I used to play with father and that, and I thought, well, it's time I got out on my own and had a go on his own, and so I did. But I hadn't a drummer then, you see, so I had to train Mary to drum. To get you know, with a drum, you're not good without a drum, really, are you? For the beat, you see, and...
So you started from scratch, Mary, did you?
Yes.
That wasn't part of the marriage contract, was it? That it
Could be. Could have been.
So you had to learn to play?
Yes.
Now, in these days of discos and karaoke and goodness knows what, who are the people who still like this kind of music and like to dance to it?
Well, it's mostly people our ages and people, older people, or some people in their 80s. One chap's over 90.
How did this business of travelling vast distances to play at all these venues, how did it start?
Somebody would come to the dance from another hall and then they'd say, oh, will you come and play for us? And then we'd go there and then somebody else would come from another hall and say, oh, will you come and play for us? And that's how it happened.
That's how
isn't
it all started. I love these days at bands because they like work. You know, you can chuck stuff into the back, have it all done out for damp, you know, so stuff doesn't get damp. Sometimes take binoculars with us because it's so scenic routes, you know. We stop and have a look through binoculars, we stop, drink a tea with us, stop in a nice place for a cup of tea, or halfway, put binoculars on.
It sounds like a very busy life for both of you. I mean, you're travelling vast distances. Why do you do it?
There's something in this, you can't describe what you get out of it really. It's an enjoyment, isn't it?
It is.
People singing and dancing and enjoying themselves.
Will you take your partners for the Boston two-step?
I enjoy it. I enjoy meeting people and we do things together and I think that's nice. Not a lot of people work together like that.
You can't beat country people, like they're nearly all descent from farming.
Farmers,
And you get nice people out of both cities and villages, like just the same. They're all friendly and they all talk to one another and mix in. There's none of this standoffish type of people, is there?
No, they're not lovely people.
You very rarely get anybody smoking, they don't drink at all, there's no drink on the job. There's more people comes into them dances, they wouldn't entertain a drink, would they? They just come to dance.
There's one or two who just goes for a drink before they start.
Very rare
don't
handful
they?
maybe.
Yeah.
You know, they're friends, aren't they?
They're not all nice
You
people.
also get the nice people coming and they all come and have a word with you, all acknowledge you as they're coming round.
When people come, like when they come into the dance, they all let on to us, don't they?
They do.
Nearly everybody, as they come in, they treat you, you know, as a friend, and they let on, don't they, as soon as they come into
They
us.
bring you tomatoes and
Oh, they do,
cauliflowers,
cauliflowers and tomatoes, and
produce out at gardens, don't they? Everything, you know, they're really grand people.
But a lot of people would imagine that that way of life is long gone. People talk nostalgically about the way it used to be in the old days, how friendly people were and helpful and all the rest of it. But you're still living that life.
Yes.
We are.
Yeah.
You see, there's a thing about this dancing, it's natural, it's been going for years and years and years, and you can still take an instrument like this in without any electronics or anything like that and still play it, just though you would play it 30 or 40 years since.
I hope you'll forgive me if, just for a moment, we step out of the wild and beautiful landscape of the Dales. I want to take you, briefly, to industrial Teesside, to Middlesbrough, in fact, the town founded on iron. In the middle of the last century, there were more blast furnaces here than there are now in the whole of Europe. They called Middlesbrough the infant Adonis. The ironmasters who developed it made vast fortunes, and the molten metal from its furnaces went on to build great structures in the four corners of the world. But what, you may ask, has all that got to do with the Dales? Well, the truth is that Middlesbrough's hunger and ambition changed the whole course of history in some of these remote upland areas. To find out how, I needed to get to Rosedale in the North York Moors. But the story had to begin at a little railway station called Battersby Junction at the foot of the Cleveland Hills. 100 years ago, Battersby was a thriving railway village. Today, it sees just a handful of trains wending their way along the Esk Valley from Teesside to Whitby. Memories of its past come to an abrupt halt just beyond the platform. So I took a walk to Ingleby, a mile or so away, to try to unravel the history of a quite remarkable railway system. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Very well, thanks.
Lovely day for a walk. I gather we're going for a bit of a climb.
That's right.
Smashing. Just lead on.
Well, we're on the course of the Ingleby Incline here, which linked the British rail network, or what was then the North East Railway network, to the top of the North York Moors. And this took the railway track up a height of about 1,300 feet.
So they went from down there right up onto the top of the moor there in the distance.
That's right.
How tough a job was that?
Well, the engineering was probably a feat in itself, but the hardest job was to actually get the wagons up and down the slope. It was obviously far too steep to have anything hauled up by a conventional engine. So wagons would be hauled up and lowered down on a wire cable. If the cable parted, as we know it did on numerous occasions, you would have a series of heavily laden wagons careering down the slope to whatever fate.
So quite a hazardous job for everybody concerned.
That's right. It wouldn't be the sort of place to stand by the track and admire the view or admire the wagons coming down, just in case something went wrong. It was a really remarkable idea, really, that instead of choosing to take the railway to the south and around the moors, they chose to bring the railway right over the course over the watershed of the moors themselves. It seems very strange to us today that they took this amount of effort. I mean, I think it quite remarkable. But they obviously decided that, in economic terms, this best served their purposes, and so they put all the tremendous amount of investment in to create this.
It's bad enough walking it, isn't it?
It's hard work walking it.
Walking through Rosedale Abbey today, you'd have no idea this was once a thriving industrial community. But a stroll up onto the slopes above the village begins to provide some clues. The gaunt ruins of old buildings are scattered all over the hills. With the help of local historian John Owen, I set out to try to find what life must have been like 100 years ago in this bleak valley. Well, John, on a lovely day like today, the valley looks absolutely beautiful, doesn't it?
It does, yes.
But a very, very different picture, I imagine, in the middle of the last century.
It must have been when up to 3,000 people were living down here in the valley, only briefly for that number, but still there was a very large population throughout the whole of the working years associated with the ironstone mining. People coming in from all over the British Isles to work here, young men, older men, family men. A great many of them would come in initially as young men on their own, but of course others did marry, they raised families here, and so after a while, the length of time that the mines were working, we'll say from 1860 until 1930, of course, a great many people were born in the Dale, and they were Rosedale men and women, and proud of it.
And what sort of conditions do they live in?
Very rough conditions. In those days, initially, there would only be sufficient accommodation for the native people in the Dale, and so these incomers, they would be lodging where they could. They'd be living rough. No doubt barns would be altered to accommodate them, and then in the end, the mining company itself would have to start putting up houses for the key workers.
But after years of neglect, an attempt is finally being made, at least to shore up what's left of Rosedale's industrial heritage. And what are you doing to these old kilns?
Well, the National Park, in association with English Heritage, are trying to preserve some of the best and most representative elements so that future generations can really appreciate them and to see what happened here in the past.
How much has been lost already, though?
Quite a lot has fallen down. It has suffered from weathering, and we're now trying to pick the best elements to consolidate. And what we're trying to do is to consolidate them very much as they are. There's a small amount of rebuilding taking place, but generally only enough that is essential to stabilise the structures. Where a main supporting wall has collapsed or the face has fallen down, we've been rebuilding that in character. But other than that, we're just trying to keep what survives as it is. Nowadays, people still don't really think of industrial archaeology as archaeology, and there's a lot of mine sites and quarries around the country which people look at just as eyesores. And probably until even a relatively few years ago, these great structures would have been considered an eyesore, whereas in fact they're part of our industrial history. And the one thing that Britain is so important for in world terms is industrial archaeology. It was the heart, the seat of the Industrial Revolution. So everything that developed in the world originally came from here.
For John Owen, the importance of preserving Rosedale's past is a more personal one.
I feel it's part of our character. A nation that has no character, that has no background or anything, it's nothing. And I feel that the British people, they've done wonders. They took over a big part of the world. They've built railways all over the world, but they've mined throughout the whole of the British Isles. And I feel that this mining tradition has put something into their character, which has made them slightly different. I hope slightly better than the average human being.
One thing the Dales are rightly renowned for is their abundance of characters, or characters as the Dales folk like to call them. The area's always been rich in these colourful individuals, many of whom have become part of the local folklore. Of course, if you ask about them, you'll more than likely be told that they're all dead and gone now, something I've always found rather amusing, because the person telling you is probably well on the way to becoming a great character himself. This was nicely brought home to me on a visit to Wensleydale, where in the market town of Hawes, there's very little you can teach them either about colour or individuality. But even here, one name crops up over and over again. Kit Calvert, the man who founded the Wensleydale Creamery. Kit Calvert, the eccentric, who ran a bookshop where customers paid what they thought a book was worth. Kit is dead now, but the bookshop is still here. And the erratic hours, basically it opens and closes on the whim of the management, suggest that the present owner is honouring the eccentric tradition. Now, for the benefit of the very few people who won't have heard of Kit Calvert, can you give us a pen picture of him? Who and what was he?
He called himself, the book's up there, the complete Dalesman, which perhaps sounds conceited, but he was a complete Dalesman because he was a harum-scarum as a lad. He left school at, I think he was 13 he left school, and he finished up selling out to the horse dairy to the milk marketing board for a ginormous sum of near £500,000. And of course that made him, in the eyes of all the people here, he already was pretty famous anyhow, but that was it. He was a local lad who had really come good. He was very shrewd. He chewed a pipe, and his silences were often, unless he was telling a story, longer than his speeches, and you had to read between the lines. And as for his books, well, people used to give them to him for nothing, and he'd say, well, if I get them cheap, they go cheap. You see that box? That was the on the table when I took over, and I still get people in. 2 days ago I got people coming in here and they say, when I first came to this shop there was a box where you put your money, the price of the book. I said, you're wrong. It didn't say the price of the book, it said the value of the book. That was Kit. When I came to Hawes, it was 78, I'd heard about him beforehand. I thought, a fantastic bookshop in a place like Hawes, which is, some people would say is the back of beyond, but I'm afraid he'd let it go to seed. But it was still worth going in because he was such a great raconteur. I got some lovely stories from him. Then one day he kept dropping hints, and I wasn't taking them up, but I knew that what he was doing. I knew he was. Then one day he says, well, I'm not going to take my car licence out, so I won't be able to go around buying any more books. Well, he hadn't been buying any books for years. So I thought, this is it. So I said, well, don't do anything foolish until you have a word with me. He whipped out his notebook, showed me last year's taking, £800 turnover. And that's how it started. And I said that I would take over only on condition that he continued to use it, as he had been using it for quite a long time, as a meeting place for his cronies. In fact, it was called Hawes Parliament, because there were these old chaps chewing the fat away on the Tuesday afternoon and on the Saturday. It was good those days. And then in 1984, Kit just turned his face to the wall. I went to get him up on New Year's Day, and I said, what are you doing in bed in this fine morning? He says, there's nothing to get up. I said, of course there is. There's two lads come to sing the Song of Wednesday for you. Let the new year in. And he got up, but he said to me that he'd had a long life and a good one, and he was ready to go to a better. And 3 days after that, he turned his face to the wall and died.
In Terry Cludery, Kit Calvert saw a natural successor to run the quirky little bookshop. Trained by the Jesuits, this former principal lecturer in education seems perfectly at home among the antiquarian tomes. What shines through, though, is his love of literature, especially poetry.
Well, that's my passion, has been all my life. I was writing poetry when I was 14, and I said it to my English master, who was my mentor, Father Wilking, SJ, and he said, say that you write verse and I hope somebody else will call it poetry. Mid-term madness. Low cloud drenched the slopes of Weatherfell, and down below in Hawes, damp seemed to swell thick duffel coats and chill those underneath. Greetings were squeezed thinly through gritted teeth. Some council workers watched in disbelief and mild disdain. Their digging stops as tourist walkers set off for the tops. A normal February day, in brief. And such it stayed most of the way we went, along the stone-flagged path to Bertiset, the finger post and stile, the sharp ascent of Yorbascar, the muffled silhouette of Drummeldrace, to suddenly forget the cold and wet as sun strikes Pennygent. I do a lot of writing, and you get tired after a couple of hours, so I just break off a quarter of an hour and fiddle about on the clarinet. And I imagine myself being a great musician. Nobody else does, but so what? I've always loved the instrument, and Mozart's clarinet concerto, that slow movements, has always been one of my favourites. Love to be able to play that, never shall, but I just amuse myself with it.
What is it about the people of the Dales that you like so much?
I won't say it's their forthrightness, because you know they don't approve more often than not by their silences. You know, you say something, I saw so-and-so, that was pretty good of him, wasn't it? That means they don't agree with you. See, but they're honest. They are straightforward in their approach. You know you're accepted when they start abusing you. If they're polite with you, then they're keeping you the distance.
Now this, can I say, this is pure gold. I shouldn't say I want to buy it off you, but 25 quid, man. Who's going to buy next? Can I haggle or
Where
what?
did you find them?
Well, it's round there.
I had a customer in for those yesterday. He was prepared to pay 30.
Absolute nonsense.
I get a great satisfaction from chatting with people in a way that you perhaps wouldn't want to speak to a customer if you're living dependent upon their custom.
Cash. 20 quid cash. You're a gentleman.
Good lad.
They're really very good.
So you don't regard it as a business?
Oh, no.
And how do you work out your pricing with a philosophy like that?
My wife can't understand this. What I say is whatever I get on a book is all profit. She says, but how can it be? I mean, you've got the light and the rent and the rates, for example. Oh, yes, I said, well, it's worth paying that for my hobby. I mean, so she says, but then you've bought the book. But once I bought the book, that money's gone. I've got the book. You know, I forgot about the money, I've got the book. So if I sell the book, then it's 100% profit. I've got it all back. I got the enjoyment of spending it on a book, and it's all come back, and I go and have that enjoyment again. You know. So
You sound like a happy man.
yes, thank God. I think that's true. Eric Gill, you know, said that the happy man is the man who does what he likes in his working hours and what he has to do in his spare time, and that's true. Been true of me most of my life, actually. So I have a lot to be thankful for. In addition to my 8 children.
Widow Emma Beeforth has been making corn dollies for 25 years. She was busy with this year's straw when I called at her cottage in the North York Moors. It was her late husband Sid, a dab hand at building and decorating haystacks in the traditional way, who first had a go. Encouraged by local historians, they were soon among the best in the country.
We started off with just making the traditional dollies, and then we got a book with all the different designs in. Each county had its own design, and we started from there and did them.
So what is the basic corn dolly then? Could you explain it to me?
Well, actually, it goes back to pagan days, and they got the last sheaf of corn and decorated it with flowers and leaves, and they kept it for the next spring, expecting the spirit was still left in the last sheaf, hence to regrow the corn again. And of course they decorated their dollies with ribbons. White was for purity, and red was for the warmth and for the colour of the poppy, and green was for the rebirth of the seed.
So let's talk then about how they're made. Obviously you start off with the right kind of straw.
Wheat straw is the best, and it must be hollow stems. You can use oats and rye, that's quite good. You get a finer plat with the rye straw, and you cut it just before it's ripe. It's better with the sap in it, and it's certainly better if you can go out into the field and cut, say, about a couple of hundred and work them. Much easier than this morning when I was doing them, and they keep breaking, you see, because they've had to be soaked. You have to soak them to make them pliable. We have sent away for straws ready-made, and it's much better, and you get longer straws too. You aren't joining quite soft, but they're quite expensive now.
So when you're making these dollies then, Emma, are you aware that you're following in an old pagan tradition? Is it something that means a great deal to you?
I think it does really, yes. Yes, the first time I saw one was near Scarborough. And I looked at this, it was a chandelier actually, and I kept looking at this and I thought, oh, how on earth can they make something like that? So intricate. And however, after a while, when we got started making them, this person that had made that one invited us over with our lot of corn dollies to a fair that they had, and to give them a demonstration as well. So that's how it goes.
Perhaps the most distinctive feature of the Dales countryside, the one that frames every beautiful view and gives scale to the landscape, is the good old dry stone wall. In fact, there's so much of it about everywhere you look that just like the hills and the heather moorland, you tend to take it very much for granted. But the humble dry stone wall represents a craft that's been handed down the generations from father to son. And it's one that, even today, inspires rivalry and fierce pride in this upland area. At every country show in the area, there are competitions to find the best, whether it be ewes or tups, Dales ponies or cows and calf. And dry stone walls are no exception. For the last 20 years, this field near Barnard Castle has hosted Eggleston's show. And over those years, a derelict boundary wall has slowly been returned to its former glory.
Number 5.
The competitors draw lots at 9:15 sharp. Then a section of the old wall is pulled down and a new one started. It's the marathon of Dales show competitions. There's a 3 o'clock deadline and a lot of hard graft ahead. You'd expect the competitors to be your typical Teesdale stock, but as I found out when I met the defending champion a couple of days earlier, in this case, you'd be wrong.
I'm from Spain, and I came here because I met my wife there, finished the army, and I just came here straight away. And I got a job as a chef for about 6 months. I was working in the kitchen at Scotch Corner, restaurant they call the Pipes. But I was working at the kitchen. It was very awkward for me to go there because I couldn't traveling. I didn't have any car at the time. I didn't pass my test, so it was very awkward to get through there. So I packed in the job because it was in the winter. And I didn't have any other things to do apart from help my brother. He wanted to show me to do it. It's my brother-in-law, you see. That's what I want to show me how to do dry stone walling. I love to be free outside with fresh air. I love to see countryside. You know, I like hard work. That's what I like. And the kitchen, well, is nice to be in the kitchen when you're cooking something different, but it's very hot. I don't like the hot weather. That's why I came to England, you see. Eggleston show competition is for people that want to go there and show what they can do. So that they, you know, it's main thing is for farming. Farming, they go in and say, well, look, that light's good, that light's bad. You know, you show what you can do in there to all the people watching. I can't prove nothing to nobody because they know what I can do, but I would like to equal the most winners at that show, you see, because it's not the 2 lads, it's won 4 times, and I won in 3. So I hope everything's go right. I'll win it this year, and I'll be equal with them, and then I can go to the national championship next year.
It all looks like back-breaking work in anybody's language. Also, though I hate to say it, it wasn't exactly the world's greatest spectator sport, but there was no doubting the passion and commitment that the Eggleston Six were putting into the task. In any case, there was plenty more to see, and plenty of time to soak up the atmosphere in this beautiful corner of Upper Teesdale. Back at the competition, things were developing. A knowledgeable crowd was beginning to gather, and the front runners were pulling away from the rest of the field. How do you think it's going, Pepe?
All right so far. All right.
Any problems?
No, I don't think so.
What's the competition like?
Very tight, very tight. Some good wallers down here, very good wallers.
Have you competed against these chaps before?
Yes, aye. Well, apart from one, no, I've been competing with them a lot, aye. Everyone. Nearly every year.
Yes, how good are they? They look very good to me.
Oh, aye, they're all good, aye. They're doing the same thing as me for a living. So, they must be good. It wouldn't be if it wasn't good, isn't it?
Have you had a chance to look at the other work yet?
No, apart from my brother. My brother-in-law is the only one.
Your brother-in-law?
Aye, he's the only one.
He was the one who taught you how to do it?
Yes, aye, that's the one.
How's he doing?
Doing all right so far.
Even to my untrained eye, it was becoming obvious that we were watching a two-horse race. Pepe versus Peter Fisher, his brother-in-law. It wasn't going to be an easy decision for the red-carnationed judge.
I don't envy your job at all.
As 3 o'clock approached, the pace hotted up. There was more than a silver cup at stake here. The collective pride of 6 craftsmen was on the line. Finally, watched by a crowd worthy of some football matches, the judge delivered his verdict.
That's the one you've chosen for first, isn't it?
It's neat all the way, yes.
Yes, and the next one,
Well,
that's going to be the second.
Leach is a good second, I think.
And which is going to be the third?
Far one, I think.
Far end one. It's a good job apart from the joint up.
Yes.
Well, Judge Mr. Hall, I'll announce his decision. The first is Peter Fisher, the top end here, and he will get the cup. The next is Benella, they call him, Pepe anyhow.
Poor old Pepe,
Second,
his dreams of the national championships shattered. And they couldn't even get his name right. Still, that's show business. And my reward for 6 hours of stonewall watching, I got to present the cup. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm told by people who know much more about these things than I do that we've just seen an absolutely first-class and very closely fought dry stone walling competition. I can tell you from my point of view, it was an absolute pleasure to watch, and it gives me more pleasure to present this cup now to the very worthy winner, Peter Fisher. There you are, Peter. Very well done. Well, Pepe, you didn't quite make it this time, eh?
No, it was tight though. I think he deserved to win it anyway.
But if you were going to lose it,
I'd rather lose to
you'd
him
rather
than
lose it to your brother-in-law.
anybody else, that's right. Keep in the family.
Keep it in the family. Peter, I'm told you were the one that actually taught him how to do it.
Yeah, well, you can't teach people how to wall. You can show them, but it has to be in you. You know, it's something that's in you. You have to have an eye for the job. If you haven't got that, you're no good at all. Like.
Well, if he's as good as they say he is, and he must be if he's won it 3 times,
Yeah.
how good are you?
Well, I've won it 5 times now, so that probably says it for itself.
Well, you've kept it in the family.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Are you both back again next year, and will you be trying to win, Pepe?
Oh, aye. We'll be trying.
All right.
Oh, aye.
Hackfall, near Ripon, is an outstanding, yet largely forgotten 18th century garden. Unlike the neat landscapes established later by the likes of Capability Brown, this was a wild and romantic place, dedicated more to nature than art. Created in 1750 by William Aisleby, for 200 years it delighted visitors to these parts. During the 50s it fell into obscurity, but now at last efforts are being made to revive it, a move welcomed by Harry Frankland, who grew up on a farm next door.
Hackfall was my adventure area, and as a kid I spent a lot of time in there, doing all the things that boys do in woods, climbing trees and learning to swim, fishing, etc. But it was really beautiful and I enjoyed it. It had magnificent trees, had a lot of lovely flowers in the spring, bluebells and garlic, masses of that. The whole place stank of garlic or smelled of garlic, depending if you like it. And it had tremendous bird life and streams with fish and all the rest of it. Typical woodland, typical wild sort of woodland.
When did it start to fall off?
Well, it was taken over by somebody for commercial purposes, I imagine, to fell all the old wood and I think it was probably for shooting and fishing at one point. And it was near derelict at one period. It's now beginning to revive. They've sort of opened out a couple of paths. Now you can walk down to the river without too much fuss. But there was a period when you could hardly get into the place at all.
Well, it did lay derelict for a long time, but now efforts are being made to do it up. What do you think of that?
Oh, I think it's a great idea, yes. I shall try and go down about a few times a year, as long as my strength lasts.
One of the many pleasures for me of compiling the Dales diary is coming into contact with that threatened species, the genuine craftsman. Now elsewhere, craftsmanship may have been killed off by mass production and quick assembly kits, but out here, if you look very hard, you can still find the real thing. Stonemasons, thatchers, dry stone wallers, to name but a few. I've been looking at the legacy left by the daddy of them all, a woodcarver who started life as poor as a church mouse, but who founded a dynasty through his love affair with English oak. But where to find the evidence of this remarkable man? My quest took me to Kilburn, a beautiful unspoilt village at the foot of the Hambleton Hills. The famous white horse carved into the chalk hillside provided no clue, but the local church seemed more promising. Our craftsman worshipped here, and, in the way that craftsmen do, expressed his commitment in a most practical way. He handmade and donated much of the furniture. But it's the mouse, or rather the mice, that provide the real clues. You'll find one on every pew. You'll find one at the base of the lectern. And if you go outside to the churchyard, you'll even find a mouse on what looks like a headstone. In fact, it's English oak, erected in memory of one John Thompson of this parish. However, it's not John we're seeking. It's the man who so lovingly carved the memorial, his brother Robert Thompson. Robert lies 2 graves away beneath a modest stone. Although his fame has spread far beyond this little country churchyard, the business he started has not. His workshops are still here, just over the churchyard wall in the village where he was born. The son of a local wheelwright, Robert had founded a Kilburn dynasty by the time he died in 1955. Today it's run by the 4th generation of the family, Ian Cartwright.
Great-grandfather, back at the early part of the century, was sent on an engineering apprenticeship over to the West Riding. And unfortunately, he wasn't too happy about that. His heart wasn't there at all. But it was his father John's wish that he should learn all about the new technology of the motor car and, of course, the piston engine. And on several occasions when great-grandfather passed through Ripon, he used to pop in at Ripon Cathedral. And, of course, there would view all the medieval craftsman's work and this beautiful carving all around him. And, of course, it inspired him to do greater things, but that came at a later date. He served all but 1 year of his apprenticeship over at the West Riding, and fortunately for us, he came back and, of course, you know, set up in business producing, well, he took over from his father to start with, then he set up producing ecclesiastical items of furniture.
This is where Robert Thompson was to get the chance to prove his worth as a craftsman, the magnificent Ampleforth Abbey just down the road from his workshops at Kilburn. The Benedictine abbot, Father Paul, provided the first commission.
I couldn't find a local craftsman that had the material that could carve this cross. Great-grandfather didn't have the material at the time, but he said he would definitely do it for him. And he went out and he cut the tree down himself. And, of course, Ampleforth ended up with what they wanted. And, of course, that was a stepping stone for great-grandfather, because he went on from that one commission to refurbish the whole of Ampleforth College and the Abbey.
The college library is a testament to Thompson's skills. In later years, he always referred to it as my room. But why did Father Paul put his faith in such an unknown?
He obviously knew a great deal about wood. He was a local man, and this is where we live, and we have always worked with local people as far as we can. And Father Paul was a remarkable man who knew genius when he saw it.
He was taking a bit of a risk, though, wasn't he?
Well, piece by piece, and so it developed. I don't think too much of a risk. And Robert Thompson was the kind of person, I think, who you could see was devoted and interested in what he was doing.
Now, that relationship, I believe, lasted for the best part of a quarter of a century.
Until their deaths. And every Christmas, Robert Thompson, I've seen a number of them, would send Father Paul a little piece of wood as a personal present. And he spoke with him, and he worked also very closely with Giles Gilbert Scott, the architect of the Abbey Church, so that he furnished the monks' choir. And so we use Robert Thompson's choir stalls every day.
The local connections persist. Just up the road is the sawmill where the oak trees are cut to size.
This is where it all starts off from. It's homegrown timber. We have it all cut to various thicknesses, and it's all naturally seasoned. We bring it back here to Kilburn to season it in our yard, and of course you can see between each of the boards there is a small lat for allowing the air to circulate. And our yardstick is for every inch thickness that the timber's sawn to. It's about 1.5 years that it'll stand outside. And then of course we rough it to shape and size and try and get the final moisture out of it in the workshop. The final moisture being the rainwater, of course.
He decided very early on that oak was the wood he would work in, is that right?
Very much so, yes. I mean, because of the way that the medieval craftsmen have worked, he wanted to work solely with English oak. You know, that's the heart, isn't it? You know, the heart is English oak. I mean, look at the Merry Rose. I mean, how many years has that been on the sea bottom? And they bring it up and there's still life in it. You know, and that's the way it is. Oak goes on forevermore.
What's so special about the way each individual craftsman works in there?
Each one's a human being for a start, and that's, you know, very important. But you'll find that each craftsman has a slightly different mouse, and it's like a signature. Like you sign your signature, the craftsman will carve his mouse. The sign of the mouse goes on everything that we produce, of course, and whoever's responsible for making that item of furniture is responsible for signing his signature, i.e. carving his mouse on there. And we can identify with who's made what.
Why did old Robert Thompson adopt the mouse as his symbol?
Well, many years ago, I happened to be working on a local church screen with one of his craftsmen, and the craftsman happened to mention that he thought they were both as poor as church mice. Now, whether that was something to do with the rate of pay that he was paying him at the time, I don't know. But he thought how alike he was, the church mouse, you know, working away quietly at the edge of the Hambleton Hills, not making a song and dance about it. And, of course, the field mouse as well, the church mouse. You know, there it is working away with its chisel-like teeth. Nobody knows it's there until it they view the damage it's done, you know. The designs were originated by Robert Thompson back in the early days, and we never discontinue, we never change the design, we only add to the range that we do. Tables that were made in the 30s are being still made today. Likewise with the chairs, because people can add to that those original items of furniture over the years. We get whole families that come back and are buying bits and pieces to add to what they've already got, which is rather nice.
Many of the Thompson craftsmen have spent a lifetime with the company. George Wakeman is in his 80s, but still helps out with special orders.
Starting in 1930 with Robert, and I worked with Robert's grandson, because he hadn't a son. He only had a daughter, and so it's been grandsons ever since. And I've worked with 5 generations now.
You worked with old Robert Thompson himself.
Oh, yes.
What kind of craftsman was he?
Very good. He was really sincere. He was absolutely thought of nothing but producing things in English oak. And of course, I saw some very interesting events. For instance, he was confronted one day with a smart aleck from the press who wanted a clever story and told him, well, you've not progress, Mr. Thompson, as long as you scratch about like this, you want some machines, get everything streamlined. You could have a real business here. And Robert said, I'm sorry, young man, I'm afraid you don't understand what I'm all about. He said, I would be obliged if you'd get out of my yard.
Quite right, too.
Yes, you know, must think he was that sort of a fellow.
Quality meant everything to him.
Oh, yes, that's right.
And obviously you all felt the same way. You all grew up in the same tradition.
It's rubbed off on me, because many a time Robert has said to me while we were in the drawing office, we're going to be up the creek with this one, George, meaning it wasn't going to pay. But that made not the slightest difference, Sir George. There's no speeding up and cutting corners. We'll have to get this out of the shop, but quick. It wasn't that at all. I'm the same myself. I've only one set of standards. I can't adjust work to suit the price. People can't afford it, go somewhere else. It's as simple as that.
So at 78, why do you keep coming back for more?
You tell me. I don't know. As long as I'm able, I'll keep on working. I can't think of anything worse. I dread the thoughts of losing the use of my hands or something. There'd be nothing to live for, obviously. Just wouldn't.
The dedication was clear, but I still hadn't quite solved the mystery of the mouse. I was told another old-timer, Stan Dodds, could explain all.
He wouldn't let it go out of the shop. Everything had to be just perfect.
And how much time did you have to serve before you were allowed actually to produce a proper finished piece and get your own mouse, so to speak?
I think I started learning to carve a mouse after about 2 or 3 weeks.
Do you have your own style?
One of the other chaps, you know, taught me how to set about it, and yes, they have their own style. Everybody has their own style of mouse.
Could you describe yours?
Well, not, it's just... I'd like to think it's something like a mouse.
On his farm in the shadow of Ingleborough, Charlie Parker uses Dales ponies in the role they were originally bred for. Fed up of expensive tractors, he decided some years ago to go back to horsepower, and only one breed would do.
We went for Dale because it was, you know, to do with this area, and it was a bit bigger and a bit stronger like. And around here they were used on farms for all farm work, in Dales, Yorkshire Dales and such like. They were more commonly used in big heavy horses like, you know, they were used for hay time and all general work with Dales at one time. They're a good all-rounder, right, really. I like to say old-fashioned type, plenty of hair on it, plenty of substance to it, and that looks like doing some work like.
Seems to me that the Dales ponies are now being bred more for show things than they are for work, and it has altered the look of them a bit, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. Unfortunately, I say, like, they've gone more like a riding pony of modern Dales, but for this showing job, but...
What do you think of that?
Well, I don't think a lot of it, really. I like to say old-fashioned type, plenty of hair on it, plenty of substance to it, and that looks like doing some work, like.
I know you're trying to get back to that genuine, traditional, hard-working breed.
Well, I've scouted round for a stallion this time for that mare, took some finding, but I found one eventually. It wasn't too far away from here, like, and it's the most work-like type of Dales I've seen. Well, he's only 5-year-old, but he's most work-like type I've seen anyway. So I've plumped to take my mare to him, like, hoping she's in fall for next year, like.
I mean, the tail is one wonderful thing,
Oh,
isn't it?
The hair, the mane, forelock,
lots
tail,
and lots of it.
Lots of it, and the more the better. Well, plenty of it anyway. A good bushy tail, which that gelding has there. I don't think you'll see a gelding with much better tail than him, and it's all there for protection from weather on the dales and the fells through winter, like.
Charlie's main job is snigging, extracting timber from local woods for everything from logs to farm gates. Here the sturdy Dales ponies, when he decided to test them against the fuel-guzzling forestry machines, were really to come into their own. They were cheaper, the accessories needed for the job were basic to say the least, and there was no trouble getting them started in the morning.
A year ago I went on a snigging course, like, which is timber extraction with horses, and it was that made me realise what horses can do in wood, like. I mean, I came into forestry 23 years ago at 18, and horses had been gone out at forestry 10 years, like, so you just get brought up in what I call the mechanical rat race, like. One man using two good horses, can get as much out as a tractor and winch in a day anyway. You do a lot less damage, you don't scrub as many trees with extracting them, like. I mean, when you're winching, you can't always get your direction as you want it, and with a horse you can just take it one way and then bring it back another way to get around a tree, like, not scrub it as much. I mean, it is harder work using horses, and but so long as you're used to hard work and you're used to forestry work, I think there's room for them, like, nowadays anyway. I think there's the demand, but it's whether the people are there that are willing to work the horses, I think. You know, a lot of these old horsemen will tell you it's not easy work, like. I mean, using them in forestry, it's not easy. I mean, it's very idyllic. And I mean, on a day like today, it's grand, like, but I mean, you know, you've many a wet day out in it, and you've a lot of brush in your woods. You've got to clamber over all that, like. You know, it isn't just a clean floor like walking down the street with him. You know, you're over some rough terrain with him, like. Downhill extraction, they'll pull anything from half a tonne towards 3/4 of a tonne with ease, like. Folks say, well, why, you know, as soon as you mention extracting wood with horses, they say, oh, have you got Shires, Clydesdales? You know, and that's the first thing they think about, but they're a bit surprised when we're using Dales, really, but they don't realise how strong they are, really, for the size of them, like. You talk to your horse, like, and it's a grand feeling, like, and it's more satisfying when you see your heap of wood at the end of the day, what you've pulled out, you know, between you, you know, and the more time you spend with them, you know, they do better for you, like. And once you've let them go out and you want to go out with them again, oh, they get a bit clever and get shaking their head as though to shake you away and say, go away, and I can go out on my own, like. That gelding there is a bit like that. He comes out better on his own, really. You know, steady away, and they just prefer to do it once they know the route out of the wood, like. They just prefer to go on their own.
So as far as he's concerned, you're just getting in the way.
Well, yeah, once they get to know what they're doing, I suppose they get to thinking they're a bit clever, you know. Like tractor where you can just switch it off at night or on a Friday night and just forget about it at weekend. You've got to, you know, make sure it's stabled or out in a croft field, whatever, all right for the weekend if you're not using it. I've farming blood on both sides of my family, so taking to horses has just been like a duck to water, really, like. You know, and I really enjoy breaking them in and working them and doing anything with them, like. You get the feed and that, and they look forward to the feed when we have our breaks, you know, and that's their little reward, is the feed, I suppose, and, you know, it all bonds together, really, and makes a good partnership, really. The more you do with a horse, the more it trusts you. You have to build a bond up between you, really, and there has to be, you know, your horse does get to relying on you and trusting you.
To some people, your average Dales farmer may appear to be a rather dour, serious type, certainly not given to anything as frivolous as singing and dancing, but in fact, nothing could be further from the truth. In my experience, Dales folk will travel miles, often in the foulest weather, for a bit of decent entertainment. Singing and the enjoyment of it has always been a major part of the Dales way of life, and nowhere is that more evident than in Upper Swaledale, where more than half a century ago, a group of local farmers enjoyed a status almost akin to modern pop stardom.
Swaledale, land of rest, beautiful Swaledale, I love thee the best. The land it is set in a cultivates time, the extension of Swaledale is 20 long miles.
They were called the Keld Singers, and back in the spring, I went to meet the two survivors.
You have to make your own entertainment, and that was the way in those days.
If you like singing, you can't help but sing.
Yes, we're all interested in singing. That was the main thing.
That family were, all of them.
And we just got together, you know, without any training at all, just sung in our own way.
Very amateurish.
Yes.
We could sing them days. I'm not boasting, but we could sing a bit.
Well, we thought we could.
Well, we could sing a bit, yeah.
Over 60 years, when we started at the beginning, and I had to walk, those days I had to walk 3 miles down to the practice and 3 miles back. Sometimes late when I got back.
What sort of songs did you sing when you first started out?
Well, in the chapels they were like what we call sankies, you know, and then such as the old rustic bridge by the mill, a boy's best friend is his mother, Lilydale and the Rose of Allendale and such as them.
Was the calm still night and the moon's pale light shone soft o'er hill and vale.
Well, we've sung all chapels in this dale and Wensleydale, Teesdale, Kirby Stephen and Sedberg,
town halls, village halls and chapels.
And they used to write to us and so, you know, you want to get the Celt singers, by the good they can sing on them lads.
Sweet lily, sweet lily day.
I've seen us in winter time, you know, running around all the buyers and further and sheep and tired. And I wish I hadn't been going. Tired. Oh yes, we could be going twice a week and more if we, but especially winter. Yeah, no, we weren't going in summer, maybe hay time, them times, you know, or lambing time. You had something else to do. But
I understand you actually broadcast on the radio on several occasions as well.
5 minutes to 7, Out About Out was the programme. And we started a verse and chorus of the old rustic bridge by the mill. And my uncle and I sung a duet, Lamplighting Time. And then the trio, A Boy's Best Friend is His Mother. And you know, we got a few letters from Lancashire, Cambridge, Knox, down Kent, folks that knew us, you see, and they heard it. The following summer I was down in the hayfield, Moyne, with horse, and the 3 chaps came to us, wanted us to sing. We gave half an hour in Leeds. We were twice at Leeds, and once at Manchester, and first time in Newcastle, yeah.
What was the reaction from the audience to it?
Oh, it was lovely, yes, it came over well.
What did you think of the experience, singing in a radio studio?
An experience for us chaps, wasn't it?
Bit nervous.
A little bit. But
Did the experience on radio make you want to take it up professionally at all?
No, not really. No, we weren't just good enough for that.
No, they did
play it over. It came over again on radio again, and we got paid again. We got 2 guineas each.
Do you miss those times?
Yes. I think many a time by, I wish I could just wake up. Some nights I'd God, we have to go, all the 4 of us go and stand up and sing. It was lovely.
Beautiful Swaledale, land of my birth, beautiful Swaledale, 'tis not known thy worth. Thy cattle and sheep and grouse on the moors, and pigs meadow bringing money like showers. Beautiful Swaledale, land of rest, beautiful Swaledale, I love thee the best. The land it is set in a cultivate style, the extension of Swaledale is 20 long miles.
Looking at the stunning landscape of the Dales, it's hardly surprising that it's provided inspiration for generations of poets and painters. But on a much more down-to-earth level, the people who live here have discovered that the unique character of the place can sometimes suggest rather inventive ways of making a living. In fact, so many cottage industries have sprung up all over the place, you could be forgiven for believing that there are very few openings left for your average Dales entrepreneur. However, on a recent visit to Reith Show in Upper Swaledale, I found out that some of the best ideas can still be staring you straight in the face. As in all the Dales, the annual show is the highlight of the year. For spectator and visitor alike, it's a chance to see and be seen. The biggest attraction was the animals, and this being hill country, the real stars, naturally, were the sheep. They came in all shapes and sizes, but not all of them were in pens. This is the way to have sheep at a show, isn't it?
Yes, they're all well fed and clean, and
they don't run away from you.
That's right. Yes.
These are absolutely lovely, actually. Are they made locally?
They're all definitive breeds of sheep. Yes, they're all made locally. We make them in our workshop in Reith. So we've got a team there. Steph is my wife. She makes the original of these, and then we make a mould, and they're all cast and hand painted by our team of about 20.
To find out more, I headed into the hills above the showground. Here, in a lovely old farmhouse, hard at work on her unusual cottage industry, I found Stephanie Ottavanger. Steph's models turned over £250,000 last year. It sure beats selling real sheep, and it's all happened surprisingly quickly.
The whole thing started back in 1981. I'd been ill for a long time, and I bought myself a border collie dog to get out and about. And around about the same time, a friend bought me a pack of clay, and I wasn't quite sure what to do with this pack of clay because it was very small. And I was sitting at home one day and I thought, I'll make a model of the dog. So I made a lying down border collie, quite small, and painted it and put it on the mantelpiece. And a friend came in and said she wanted one, so I made one for her. So I made a few more after that of the dog. I made him as a puppy, and then as he grew up, made more models of him. And then one day somebody asked me to go to craft fair. And I'd never been to a craft fair before. I was quite worried about it. And so I took a few border collies and some sheep and a few horses that I'd made as well, and couldn't believe that they actually sold. I was really amazed. So I went home very inspired and bought some more clay.
All this started in your own living room at home. You outgrew that very quickly.
We did, yes, we did. When we moved to Grinton, we used to work in the kitchen. We used to store the models in one of the bedrooms, and it rapidly became that we couldn't sit down to have dinner without moving the boxes out of the dining room to sit down. So we had to find a workshop, and that workshop is the one that we now have in Reith. It started very gradually. I had no intention of it being a business. It was a hobby. Right from the start, it was a hobby, and I was enjoying it. I really enjoyed this hobby. Of course, I went to the first craft fair, and then you get invited to more craft fairs. And at the end of the first year, I was more or less going to craft fairs every week. The countryside is just so beautiful around here, and the animals are wonderful. There's no shortage of inspiration at all. It just comes when I'm out with the dogs. you'll go around a corner and see a beautiful view and see the animals in that view. It just actually comes, and I'll think it over for a while and then sit down one day and just actually work on it, and it just develops very slowly.
How do you see the business developing?
Well, I'm not keen on the business getting any bigger. At the moment we're employing 20 people, and if the business gets any bigger, it means I'm going to be more concerned with organisation and get away from the model making, which I don't want to do. I like to be involved in the making process. I don't want anything to take me away from that.
Why do you do it, Steph?
When I was a child, probably about 8, 9 years old, we used to go to the river, play down by the river, and there used to be sort of an area of clay going into the river, and while the other children were paddling, I'd be sitting making models of horses and dogs.
So it's something that's always been with you?
It's something that's always been with me, yes, yes. I can't explain why, I just like making models.
In many ways, you're a very lucky person, aren't you? Here you are living in a beautiful part of the world, going out on lovely country walks with your dogs.
That's right.
And making a very good living at the same time.
That's true, yes, I really do think I'm very fortunate. It's a beautiful, beautiful place to live, it really is. And I'm doing what I enjoy.
For more than 65 years, Arthur Mann has been travelling the highways and byways of North Yorkshire. First, he did it on a bicycle. Next, on a motorbike. Now, at the age of 87, in one of his rare concessions to the modern age, he has progressed to a Robin Reliant. Before some of today's pensioners were born, Arthur was a well-known figure at the remote Dales farms. Answering emergency calls in all weathers, he brought harmony to places where once there was only discord. But although he may have been travelling in Harriet's footsteps, Arthur's skill is not in curing sick animals, but sick pianos.
Well, when I was at home, I was doing a lot of practice on the piano. And Mother once said to me, I wish you could do something with that piano. So we had a tuning hammer, tuning fork, and I set about it. And she said one of the things, I'm sure it sounds a bit better. So that prompted me to say, well, if I can do it for myself, I can do it for others. So I put an advert in the Knaresborough Post, and at the bottom of the advert, distance no object. So one thing led to another. And you see, with playing the organ, and I used to teach as well, you see. I got known bit, and I've never been slack for all the time I've been doing it, 50, 60 years.
You've got a good ear then, obviously, Arthur.
Oh, you have to have. Oh, yes. You're bound to have. But I think piano tuning is 90% patience and 10% good hearing. If you've got good hearing and you've no patience, you're absolutely hopeless, because you're just doing every wire up tiny bit, you know, at a time. No, you want really a lot of patience, and that's what folks are short of nowadays.
Have you ever had a shock when you've looked inside one?
I have that. Oh, now then, yes, because where was this? There was a village the other side of Ripon, and I believe they telephoned me would I go to the piano, as they couldn't get a sound out of it. I said, yes, I'll go on such and such a date. I arrived at the house, and she took me into the room. Wasn't a bad-looking piano. Well, I pressed some of the notes down. There wasn't a blooming sound. So, lifted the top, took the front off. And I said, Mrs. Thompson, are you there? She said, yes. She came in. Where's the inside? Inside? Wasn't it there? The inside was not there. They'd bought it at a sale, thought it looked nice. They'd bought a piano without an inside now. And that's the last I heard of that.
You weren't able to do anything for her. Arthur still answers calls for his services from all over the Dales. Apart from the piano tuning, he's been a music teacher for 60 years and an organist at the local church for more than 50. So, when the owners of Snape Castle asked him to tune their chapel harmonium, it was no great sweat. Organ or piano, modest farmhouse or great mansion, it's all in a day's work for Arthur.
I like what do you call it, the antiquity of it. I like to walk in and just look about. You know, I mean, anybody else who goes, they have to pay to go in. But when you're going to do some work, we can walk in without bothering.
Tuning the harmonium must be an awful lot different from tuning your average
piano.
piano.
It is. Oh, my word, yes. Oh, there's no comparison.
Do you enjoy it as much?
No. They're wonderful little instruments. And yet those reeds, there's maybe 3 complete rows. There might be 680 then to tune. And you can only do it by taking them out. And often with methylated spirits you can clean them nicely. So you hope that by cleaning them they'll be in tune, you see. Then, I tell you what's nice, when you finish the organ, then you play it. You see, then you can see what it does sound like. I think if you can tune a piano nicely and adjust it, and it sounds nice, and it sounds, shall we say it sounds perfectly, the money doesn't matter. We know you have to have the money, we know you have to have that, but if you've done a good job and it sounds well and they're pleased, you've done a lot.
I suppose a casual visitor could drive through the Dales and conclude that there's little to see out here except sheep and hills and heather, and of course there's plenty of that. But the area is also a treasure house of history and legend for those prepared to look for it. And not all of it is on the grand scale either. Oddities and curiosities abound, and one man who knows more about them than most is Duncan Smith. When I caught up with him, curiously enough, he was walking around in circles at the side of a country road in North Yorkshire. Good morning, Duncan.
Hello. Hello.
What on earth are you up to?
Well, it was a nice summery day, so I thought I'd come out and walk the maze here, the turf maze between the villages of Dalby and Bransby.
Is it an exclusive sort of pastime, or can anybody
No,
join
anybody
in?
can join in as long as you know how to do it.
Well, lead on, Macbeth.
Okay, you must follow me.
I must follow you?
Yes. Part of the maze, the ritual of the maze, is that you mustn't cross the path. You must follow the strict route all the way around to the centre. Now, you probably know that there are 2 types of mazes. There's the hedge maze, which is a more recent development from about Elizabethan times, which was really just a rather elaborate form of entertainment. Children love them today because they get thoroughly lost. You have a choice of routes.
Hampton Court and all that.
Exactly, Hampton Court. Far more ancient is the turf maze. This is a great example here. Now, one of the theories, one I quite like, is that the maze was a means of casting out the devil in more superstitious times. If you were thought to be afflicted with the devil within you, you had to walk into the centre of the maze. Now, people used to believe that the devil could only walk in straight lines. Therefore, if you walk all the way into the middle of the maze, and then you walk all the way out of the maze, the devil can't follow you. So you've effectively cast out the devil.
Well, what have we got here?
Well, we're in the Norman church of St Mary's here in Orne. The building itself is historically of great interest, but by far the greatest curiosity is this. It's actually what's known as a maiden's crown or a maiden's garland. Now, it's a custom which stretches back way before the Reformation days. When a young girl in the parish died before she got married, died a virgin, they would manufacture a garland, a crown, made of white linen or white cloth or white paper, which would be borne at the head of the funeral procession. And when it was brought into the church, it would be situated on the wall of the church after the burial, along with an inscription. And this would tell us that this girl had died a very early and a very tragic death.
What a sad little story.
It is.
So we've travelled to Bedale now, Duncan.
Yes, we're in Bedale. I remember a couple of years ago, I stood up on the bridge just behind us, and I looked over here and I thought, can that be a rather eccentric garden shed? And therefore, obviously, I was interested in it. What it turns out to be is an 18th century, 19th century leech house. Now, of course, back in those days, medicinal practice was a little more primitive than it is today. In those days, what they used to use was the dreaded leech, which was found in the local Bedale beck here. They would bring them up, put them in little trays of moist turf, keep the leeches growing there until they became nice and fat. When the local doctor had a case of somebody coming in and saying, I've got a headache, I've got a bad leg, bad kidneys, whatever, the chemist would come down here, open the door, go in, pick a couple of nice fat leeches, take them up to the doctor. The doctor would then slap them on the offending area, and sure enough, so they claim, the illness was cured. Now, whether you believe that or not, I don't know, but this is, as far as I know, a unique example of a leech house. There was once another one further upstream, but as far as I know, this is the only one. Luckily, the locals took care of it. They realised they had a curiosity on their hands here, and as you can see, they've done it all up nicely. It's got its little mock crenellations along the top and its pointed windows. It's a true curiosity.
Well, that's about it from the diary, but let me leave you with some images of the Dales that few people ever see. They're of the narrow boats on one of the most beautiful stretches of the Leeds-Liverpool Canal near Skipton. Bye-bye for now.